Hello, friends. Just want to converse with you about us, about every moment of the day, how we are in ourselves, ways to look at ourselves. Life's so full. Life has so much. There's so much to do. And it's really hard to know who you are that's doing all this, why you're doing it, what's really the underlying dynamics. I sometimes think of us, the me, the ego self, which is in part what I'm using to talk to you. But I think of it as kind of like something small, like a penny, sitting on top of a big balloon. And the balloon are all these patterns that we've learned and assimilated from others all our lives, patterns of protection, patterns of resistance, patterns of assertion, patterns that have allowed us to adapt and survive psychologically and sometimes thrive psychologically. And, you know, that penny on the top, that me, that ego, it's got some style, it decides how much of what it's learned in its college and university years, or how much it's learned through life in whatever you've walked. And it kind of embellishes, but why you assert a certain kind of opinion, why you borrow your identity from your accomplishments, why you seek what you seek, that's all inside the balloon, kind of telling you what to do the whole time. And the question is, some of that's really necessary. It's telling me what to do in terms of walking and cooking and taking care of my house and a million zillion other things. But the question is, what does our heart say? What does your heart say? Because the heart is in that balloon, and it's far, far more than that balloon. We give Valentine's cards, at least in the US, it's catching on in Europe and other parts of the world. But we use that symbol of a heart, that red heart. I've got it in my emojis list, as you have, and you can send it as a shorthand way of saying love. My heart's with you. And so we're implying some kind of intelligence. Sometimes we just think of it in terms of romantic love. But the heart is a kind of organ of intelligence that's so different than the ego, the me, and so different than the mental aspect of the mind. And the only way we ever get to really listen to what the heart says, what the heart knows, is when we can stop some of those patterns that are just waiting to determine how we talk, what we're looking for, how we're going to react, what we've defined as important in that situation. And the heart's listening in a much broader way. It's listening in a kind of timeless way. It's listening in a context of you, a human being, in the field of human life, in the field of nature, the natural order, in the field of the earth, in timeless in many ways, inheriting so much from the long distant past as well as the immediate past. The heart is kind of listening. And what does the heart want to say? When you're defensive and you realize the person in front of you doesn't know how to find what their heart wants to say, and you're two people not listening to your heart, but listening to the mental, listening to the emotional looping, listening to your opinions, listening to those patterns that are just sitting there waiting just to determine how you talk, what you say. What does the heart say? It probably says something like, the heart intelligence will say, there's a a profound context here that neither of us are seeing. I'm not seeing. There is a purpose for life, for human life, that you may be missing completely now if you're just operating through the style and embellishment of your penny on top of the balloon, that ego me. The heart's saying, yeah, have some style, but listen to me. Listen to me. That person in front of you is a universe. They're an otherness. They're living inside their patterns, their stories, their dramas, just as you are. How are you going to hold them? Suppose the heart will tell you, don't engage them with words. Wait. Wait until you feel something so true in you, so real in that moment, that it's not a mental rejoinder. It's not a going around the side rejoinder. It's not an evasion. It's like, I see you. I see you with my heart. I hear you with my heart. I'm sensing the space of us with my heart. I'm in a much broader time frame. I don't have to win anything now, and I certainly can't lose a thing. At that level of heart intelligence, there's no winning or losing. Love has an intelligence. The heart resonates with that intelligence. We need to use language like I'm using because love is a big word, and there's so many levels of love. We need to have a sense that when we're using a word like that, we're beginning to create inside of ourselves. You're creating inside of yourself a relationship to love, not as your mother and father taught you, not as the Valentine cards have taught you. Some beautiful stuff written on Valentine's cards, some beautiful things shared with you, brought to you through your mothers and your fathers, through your grandparents, through so many people. But it's listening in this moment. It's listening to what love might mean in this moment. And it's saying, what I want right now is what allows this relationship that I'm living with whoever, and especially myself, this relationship to have a deep, deep ground in stillness, this relationship to have a kind of fundamental security, a rightness of being. Human beings are an extraordinary creation. I mean, nobody understands how we've gotten here over the billions of years this planet has existed, how consciousness has come to this form in us. We don't know. So we're the ones that determine at this point how consciousness is going to operate in us, not the penny on top of the balloon. I'm pointing to the top of my head because in a way it's like that. It's not the penny being governed by just the patterns, emotional patterns that have been laid down, neural pathways that have been laid down, 4 patterns of self-protection, patterns of psychological survival, patterns of higher functioning in the world. All of that's not bad. All of that's essential too. But what does the heart want? And I'm not going to be able to answer that question for you. But if you're not asking that with your children, with your spouse, with the people you work with, if you're not asking, what does the heart want to say? Then you haven't gotten quiet enough to listen to the heart. You haven't backed off enough. You haven't realized that that penny on the balloon is ruling you. The balloon is full of patterns that you haven't looked at. And all you have to do to change that is to become a disciple of something like love, to become a disciple of heart intelligence. How do you become a disciple of heart intelligence? Well, you're the creation of whatever you believe heart intelligence is. And if you obligate yourself to your own creation, if you say heart intelligence means that somehow I'm not going to turn completely away from anyone ever, that I'm not going to set boundaries, I'm going to set spaciousness. Instead of a boundary between us, I'll be big enough that whatever's coming toward me, whatever I'm sitting in with the other, is, not a tempest in a teapot. Persons, when you have to put up rules and boundaries, your whole psychology is a tempest in a teapot. You're the teapot and the tempest. What does the heart say? Again, I know people want to know how. How? But the how is this. You determine what love is, and you determine how that obliges you, moment by moment, breath by breath, how you listen, how you look, how you touch, what space you create. You determine, and then you see how you evolve. You see what happens inside of you, how your pounding, furious waves of karmic, neurotic, blah, 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 settles down, and there's a new perspective, a new vision. The world seems to be going crazy, and yet a lot of good is also happening all the time. But we still don't seem to understand that inside that balloon are very old conditioned relationships to uncertainty and fear, anxiety and worry that we're generating with the way we engage the world. What does the heart want? What does the heart say? It'll never tell you something that creates more anxiety. In fact, your heart will tell you if you're having a thought, if you're living some kind of internal drama about someone else or yourself, and you're noticing you're getting more agitated, you're noticing you're getting more tense, you notice you're getting more anxious, you notice your mind is moving faster and faster. The heart's basically telling you, can you see that? That's the sign you're wrong. That's the sign that the penny operating through all that conditioning, all that adaptation, things you had to do to get past trauma, things you had to do to adapt to other people's personalities and characters and behavior. It's running the show right now. If your thinking process makes you anxious, it's the wrong thinking process. Are there challenging things? You bet. There are every day. But if you don't foster them with more and more thinking and more stories and more internal conversations, imaginary conversations, then you begin to be able to listen. What does the heart want to say right now? Oh, I know. The mind will go, how would that work in politics? Or how would that work with, a demagogue like Putin invading Ukraine? He's not listening to the heart. Neither is Zelensky. Nobody's listening to the heart when you're attacked and you attack back. No, nobody. Has it worked? Let's see. How long do we have history for? Doesn't appear to ever have worked. Ever. And yet we're also evolving. I'm not just a negative pessimist about this. There's so many ways we know our world and our lives and ourselves better than ever before. But that balloon, oh boy, you calling me you're going to take over my territory? That balloon is saying to you, I can't trust you. It's the penny because of the balloon. I can't trust you. Right? You hear those thoughts? The first thing you want to think, the heart will say to you, what is it you don't trust in yourself? I can't depend on you. The heart will say, what is it you can't depend on in yourself? What don't you trust in yourself? What can't you depend on in yourself? Well, those are all patterns in the balloon. It's talking through the penny. This little me. I'm not saying this because I never have anxiety. That's nonsense. I'm saying this because the heart talks. The heart has something it wants to say. And we need that language. We need that wondering. We need that contemplation. We need that consideration. You have to decide what you're here for because death is coming for sure, right? And if you want to believe you're going to be reunited with people and there's life after this and you're going to have a zillion other reincarnations, that's a very compassionate and generous belief system. But if it gives you an excuse for 1 millisecond to not show up, listening with your heart, looking with your heart, listening to what the heart wants to say in any situation, then those beliefs about Future opportunity is part of mediocrity. It's part of selling your life short. Don't sell yourself short. Don't sell your life short. Get to the end of this life having embodied and incarnated as much love as you can, having done the endless battle of resisting what those patterns want to express through your penny. Have a good laugh at the me, because it ain't that important. And if anything doesn't die at death, it ain't the me. The me is gone. Everything it thinks its world is about and its life is about, it's gone. Only thing that'll be left is how much love you made, how much people in this world are better because of an interaction with you. Today, I say this with a lot of energy because nobody is a victim in this. Nobody can take away how you let your heart speak. Nobody. Only the penny sitting on the balloon of conditioning and patterns of self-protection. Only that can take away your true authenticity, your true authority. Make a relationship different today. Make the relationship that's really difficult different, stopping all the internal conversations about that person. Because whoever that person is, your balloon and your penny have made them into a performer in your own theater. It's not who they really are. Make a relationship better today, starting with yourself. My dog's snoring. This doesn't seem to stimulate her very much. Blessings.